My friends, I'm excited to share this week's episode with you, which is in a different and new format than what you're normally used to. My friend and fellow podcast host, Barton Bryan, host of the Mindset Forge podcast, has shared one of his recent podcast episodes with me so that I can share it with you, my community. Barton introduces 3 powerful concepts that will transform the way you show up in your life. This 10-minute solocast will help you implement simple strategies to be more present, mindful, and powerful in your life, sport, or passion. Aside from this solocast episode, what makes Barton's podcast so special are the successful athletes and performing artists that he interviews and the wisdom they bring to the conversation. I definitely recommend you add the Mindset Forge podcast to your lineup of favorite shows. And now, enjoy the episode.
You are listening to the Mindset Forge podcast. As always, I'm Barton Bryan, your host, and I love interviewing people and talking about the mindset around performance, whether that's athletics or performance on stage. Throughout my various interviews with top athletes and performing artists, some universal truths have really come to the surface. Some of those truths are brand new to a lot of us, and some are really just simple ideas and concepts that we probably already knew about, but we didn't realize how powerful they are if used at the right time. These concepts can take our performance to the next level. This is a short and to the point episode. I want to deliver massive value in the form of 3 key concepts that if you implement immediately, you're going to experience profound growth. In fact, I'd estimate that just one of these 3 concepts could make a profound difference on you and how you show up for your big moments this week. But first, we need to be clear on a few things. I need you to decide what we're talking about. What I mean is, identify something in your life that's coming up this week that you would like to make sure you show up better for. Because general concepts are not going to really be helpful here. Maybe it's a presentation at work. Maybe it's an interview you have or a recruiting call you have coming up. It might actually be a basketball game or a performance that you have. But it could also be something to do with work or even your kids. Just think about it. Be very specific. What's that thing that you want to really show up at your best for this week? And keep that top of mind. So if you need to pause and think, go for it. But let's continue with the idea that you have in mind that thing that you're going to show up better for this week. First big concept. You're going to need to set aside time before the thing that you want to get better at. What I mean is, if you have a performance or a call or a presentation or whatever it is, you need to take a couple of minutes before that moment, quiet to yourself, and you need to ask yourself a question. We oftentimes just walk into a situation expecting that we're not going to carry all the things from that last place we were into that new situation. We're not actually stopping and preparing our body for what is about to happen. Now, actors do that all the time. Before they walk on stage, they're doing movement, they're doing breathing, they're doing relaxation, they're getting into character. And an athlete was definitely doing that on the blocks before a big race. They're going to be thinking about mobility, stretching. What are they thinking about? All those little nuances that are going to help them be better. But as individuals, do we do that? Do we stop before we walk in the door to come home from work and think, how do I want to show up for my kids right now? Or step into a meeting and do a presentation. Do we stop and say, how do I want to show up in this moment? And then visualize it. I find that asking yourself a question and then not answering it with words, but answering it with visualization is a key motivator to channel your energy to actually get the thing that you envision. So case in point, let's say I'm about to walk into a meeting and present to the CEO of a company about an idea I have. Before I walk in there, I'm going to set aside probably 15 minutes or more to think through the points, the ideas, and ask myself that question. How do I want to show up in this moment? And then visualize that. Visualize the things going well. Visualize the moments that you're going to have where the person you're talking to laughs or nods their head in understanding, or you get the yes that you're looking for. Now take it to a sports analogy. You've got a big run coming up, maybe even a race, and you're thinking about how you're going to run, what that form's going to look like, busting through the finish line, all those things, visualizing it, taking the time to do that. It will get your brain, your body and everything you got focused on that outcome happening. So that's your first major nugget. And for more information on the mindset around performance, I definitely recommend listening to Dr. Harold Chernitsky's interview as he talks about the things to think about or not to care about before you perform. Okay, next up. So in any performance, there is going to be a time when our nerves get the best of us, or when we start to notice that our breathing is shallow, or that our focus is complicated by the fact that we're nervous or we're stressed out, or things just didn't quite go exactly the way we want them to. And that's when you need a word that's going to settle your body. You don't say it out loud, you think it. This comes directly from my interview with Dr. Catherine Jolly, the opera singer and professor of voice at Oberlin Conservatory. She actually teaches her voice students in performance to have a word, and she uses release. She just says the word in her mind, and her body instinctively relaxes a little bit. I've been utilizing this recently, and I've noticed that from the muscles around my ribs, my core, and my pelvic floor, everything starts to release a little bit when I say that word, release. In a moment during the performance, when you feel tense or you feel like you're out of the moment, have that word. Now, you have to practice this. You can't just pull this out of the blue when you need it in a performance. So my challenge to you is this for the second concept, and this may be the only one you grab, and I promise you, if you use it and practice it and get good at it, it can be an absolute game changer. But come up with your word. It doesn't have to be release. It could be anything. It could be quietness. It could be still. Anything that really works for you. But just be sitting or standing or walking, and then think the word in your mind and just let your body relax. And try to feel not just your diaphragm relax, not just your core relax, but even your pelvic floor. Practice that at different points of the day, just thinking the word and relaxing your body. That repetition over and over will then be able to be valuable to you in that moment where maybe you're doing squats and you can tell you're just tight, and you say the word, boom, you settle back in, your body relaxes where it needs to relax, and you're back on track. And that's what we need to create with a word like this. That's your number 2 nugget. You got to do repetitions with this so that it becomes a valuable tool for you to relax your body and mind when you need it most. And for more information on this concept, I highly recommend you listen to Dr. Catherine Jolly's episode as she discusses this towards the end of the interview. The final concept is box breathing. This is something that's been discussed on my podcast several times by various guests, specifically Phil DeRue. And if you go back and listen to Phil DeRue's interview, he goes into depth about how important box breathing is. I'm going to talk about it here because I think it's a very important practice that we all need to have. Again, like having that word that you use that settles your body, box breathing is something you need to practice so that when you need it right before performance, it can truly settle your nerves and put you in a parasympathetic state, which is going to make you much more in a mind-body flow. You're going to inhale through your nose for 2 seconds. You're going to hold that breath for 2 seconds. You're going to exhale that breath through your mouth for 2 seconds, and then you're going to hold that exhalation for 2 seconds. So it's a very simple practice. Even if you did 10 breaths like this once or twice a day, it will be helpful. It will help settle your body and your parasympathetic nervous system, which is going to help you be more present, more in that flow state where your body, your mind, and your will are working together. Once you've practiced that, then boom, you're going to take it into your next performance. And going back to that thing we talked about earlier, what is that thing that you're trying to make sure you show up better for this week? Think about that. Then think about what I talked about earlier, the visualization, asking yourself how you want to show up, and then doing 2 or 3 box breaths right before you walk in or step on stage or do the thing you're supposed to do. And I promise you this, it will make a significant difference on how you show up and how you perform. If you just trust these ideas, put them into practice, and see what happens. So to summarize, the 3 components that I want you to take away are, first, ask yourself the question beforehand. How do I want to show up in that moment? And then visualize it in your mind's eye. That's the first concept. Second, you need to have a practice around a word that helps relax you when you notice that your nerves or your stress level is going up. And then third is work on box breathing. and utilize that right before you step into that moment to let your body settle in and get your parasympathetic nervous system back online so that you can show up at your absolute best. Take these concepts and utilize it this week, and I guarantee you will see results. Feel free to send me a message. Let me know what you did, how it worked. If you have any questions at all, I want to hear from you. You can find that information in the show notes. And for more information about this type of stuff, Dr. Harold Chernitsky talks about the first concept. Dr. Catherine Jolly talks about the word that helps to settle us when we need it most. And for box breathing, go back to season 2 and listen to Phil DeRue's episode. All 3 of those episode links are going to be in the show notes for easy access to those episodes. All right, have a fantastic week. And to close, here's my son, Jack.
Thank you for listening to the Mindset Forge podcast.